Yo, what's up guys? Today we're going to be coaching a Platinum Lissandra who's pretty new to the game, only has about 200 games total. And so this video is a bit more for lower ranked mid laners. I would say if you're, below Master, this is probably a more useful video, kind of giving you the fundamentals of mid lane, a lot of just basic things that a lot of lower ranked people don't really do. This can still be valuable to anyone, but definitely would say that's especially who it's really useful for. If you guys are interested in getting coaching from me, a rank 5 sovereign autofill player, just DM me on Discord, Talon1169, or through the link in the description to my YouTube videos. You can find my Discord server there. Coaching is just $15 an hour. I've coached people from many different ranks. Many people have reached their new peak ranks with me, going anywhere from, from Master, Grandmaster up to Challenger, to maybe being someone like Emerald, Diamond, going to Master, Grandmaster, that type of thing. So if you're interested in that, just DM me on Discord, and I hope you guys enjoy the video.
Yeah, so Plat 2, I've only been I don't have that many games, as you can see. I only have 188.
Yeah. And so what kind of is the goal overall with the coaching and everything? Are you trying to get to a certain rank, or just kind of learn the game better, or?
Just learn the game better.
Okay.
I like rank, but I don't see myself wanting to climb like
Yeah.
that.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's just,
So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know, I was like, I like the competitiveness, but like, it's just a lot of weak mentals. And that's coming from someone who's played Pokemon Unite. You see a lot of people like quit. They die one time and it's like, oh, it's GG, it's over.
Yeah, that
Like,
definitely does happen
fam,
for.
it's like, fam, it's 2 minutes in the game. What do you mean?
Yeah. No, that's why I mute chat when I play, so I just don't have to even read what they say. And that helps a little bit. And then also the higher you go, which is one incentive to climb, the less people give up. They still definitely give up, but it makes it a bit better. But yeah, basically we'll just go into 2 raid plays, we'll watch them. I'll just talk about a lot of the details of whatever we could work on during the game, and then at the end I'll write out notes that I'll send you to make them, like for the specific points to kind of work on afterwards.
Okay. I gotta find the games. Where was it? I think it was these two. Yes, these two. We'll do this one first.
Right.
Don't mind the losses on my thing. I was trying to cook a different build on my Blitzcrank and it wasn't doing so hot.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, everyone has lost streaks. What was the build that you were playing? I wasn't paying attention.
For the Blitzcrank, I think I went more tanky because for my Blitzcrank build, I try to play more like a healer type.
Do you go like what, redemption or something on him, or?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Redemption's Protector's Vow to try to help keep the team up, but still
Yeah.
be tanky. And I kind of sacrificed the healing
Gotcha.
for more tanky.
Also, if you can pause real
To
quick,
kind of,
couple
I got
things. The pause in the, yeah. So click in the top right, the 3 little bars there, and then where it says Fog of War, yeah, like the 3, yeah, there. And then the Fog of War, put it on the blue eye. This way we would see like what you would see while you're in the game. And then last thing to point out, not with the settings, you're done with the settings, but with the game itself, your ward, level 1, you don't really want to ward level 1 in general. The reason you don't want to ward level 1 is 1, you're not going to get ganked level 1, and then 2, you can't place the ward in as good of a spot, because if you push your wave first and then you go and ward, you can potentially ward the jungle camp, which would be like, for example, the Raptors, which you probably don't know specifically the name of them yet, but yeah, go up, yeah, there, the camp right there. So
right here.
yeah, you would ward there, because then what you can do is you're actually going to see the jungler as they go on their camp, which is just a lot more effective. So if you push your wave level 1, and like you're the one to have, we call it lane priority, it basically means you've pushed the lane further than them, like you get the minions pushed first, then you have the ability to ward that. But say that you're losing your lane or you're getting pushed back, then you'll do the same ward that you just did, but you'll just do that at level 2, and it's no different, because you're not going to get ganked level 1 unless like the enemy jungle is just being really weird, but it's very, very rare. So that's just the first thing to point out, but we can go back into the game now.
All right.
And yeah, click on the left side on your character's icon. That's how it just follows your champion. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay.
And then overall you play this lane fine. The only issue with the level 1 is also that you weren't on the wave right away. And when you don't go on the wave right away, the enemy is able to get control of the wave and then they're able to push it under your tower how you saw, so that he pushes it first. And when he pushes it first, then we can't do that warding that we kind of spoke about, and so we don't have as much control over kind of what goes on. So we want to be on the ward at pretty much level 1, and then we want to auto it as soon as it reaches, just enough to where it's slightly lower health, like his wave is slightly lower health than ours, so that we constantly have that pressure and that push in the lane. Whereas what you're doing, it means that you never really have control over, like I said, the warding as one thing, or getting the recall first, that type of thing as well. So those are kind of the reasons that we want to, in matchups that are decent for us, we want to have that push and kind of control over the lane. Obviously, if it's a really difficult matchup, that's going to be different, but you are a hard counter to Echo, so it's a very, very good matchup for you, so we're pretty happy with doing that.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was. Yeah, I didn't even know it was a. I don't know the matchups. I just kind of play until whatever.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. A lot of times, and I think it's totally fine to play the same champion like every game, if like that's because that's easier in terms of like you only have to understand one champion instead of understanding a bunch, and then you can branch out, you know, later. So I think that's fine. Generally, for Lissandra, her best matchups are assassins. The reason that Echo is so good, because he has an ultimate where he basically rewinds time 3.5 seconds and goes back to whatever health he was at that time. And he can't click the ultimate if you stun him or root him, and you have a root and a stun. So you're just very good at countering champions like that need to like not be, you know, stunned or anything, and where they get countered by CC. And then also burst damage champions and assassins like Echo, they get countered by Lissandra because of your ultimate. So pause here as well, real quick. So a couple issues with this. The first thing is the pretty much fundamental rule of mid lane is push your wave before you do anything else. And you went and you killed a ward as your wave was already in mid lane about 20 or 30 seconds ago. And doing that means that you're going to lose out on minions. Like you lost an entire minion there, which is more gold and XP than you get from that ward. Plus you could kill the ward at any time, but the minions obviously are going to die eventually. So you have to kind of kill those quicker. So always push your wave 95% of the time. Of course, there's always nuance to the game. There's going to be times where maybe it's not the correct play, but almost always push your wave before you do anything. So we push our wave before we rotate, like to a fight here. So you've pushed your wave at this point, so it's fine to rotate. Push your wave before you ward, push your wave before you recall, basically before we do anything. Additionally, we have to understand recall timers. And again, like I said, we want to push our wave before we recall. The typical time we want to recall as Lissandra and most mages is once we hit 900 gold. 1400 total, but like 900 in your pocket, because that's going to let you get your mana boots. And mana boots are a really good power spike because they obviously help you out with your mana a lot. They give you way more burst damage overall. So for Lissandra, that's usually what we would want to do. Usually you can do that after the third wave that comes if you get perfect like last hits. And if you don't get perfect last hits, you have to wait for 4 total waves. So after usually the 4th wave, most commonly, you recall, you buy your boots, then you come back to lane. You're going to push 1 more wave, and then you can start recalling. And that would be on this wave that you've already just started roaming on, but you would have already recalled, so you have higher health, higher mana, and you know, better items. Does that all kind of make sense? Or
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, you can start again. I just wanted to point that out. And like I said, we'll write down kind of these main things so that obviously it's a lot to, you know, remember just from me saying it all right now. So we'll write the things down so that we understand. But that's typically just the main fundamental thing we need to understand. And then also to understand your champion's goal. Your champion is a champion who really likes pushing the wave and then roaming a lot. You're not really playing to dominate lane. So doing stuff like this, for example, where you push your wave and then you roamed, is very good. We just have to have that additional thing of getting the recall off a bit quicker so that we're stronger, so the roams are more likely to work out. And then at this point, after you push the wave, you recall, you go back mid, everything here is fine. So yeah. Any like questions, or does it all kind of make sense so far?
It's kind of making sense. I will say that is one thing that I do struggle with is roaming. I kind of prioritize my lane more than roaming, or in like some situations, I kind of prioritize roaming more, where I set more plays for my team, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of the reason why I like Lissandra, because sometimes I'll play to like be the carry, and then other times I'll be like, all right, I'll backseat it.
Yeah, and play more.
And I feel like Lissandra has best of both worlds. You know, if I need a carry, I can carry. If I let's say Yasu was carrying, he did it.
Yeah,
I'd play more around Yasu.
for sure. And so, are you saying that you have a Yasuo on your team this game, or are you just saying in general as like a hypothetical?
Like in general.
Okay, I was just making sure because Yasuo's brother is on your team, and I wasn't sure if you were confusing the champs. And that's besides the point. But yeah, so I mean that's great, and that is definitely a good mindset to have. So typically the way that we're going to decide on whether we want to play the way you said with carrying or with roaming and playing more for our team, kind of how you've been playing a lot for your team in this game, is really how the first couple levels of your lane go. So I said that the first three waves are going to be the waves that you're playing around before recalling. Again, maybe 4 waves max, right? And then we recall most of the time.
Yeah.
Those first 3 or 4 waves are where you're going to usually decide on how the game's going to go. So say that you've already killed your laner, or you're getting a big advantage on your laner, you know, that type of thing. Then we're going to continue to play for our lane, play for our own advantage, because clearly we're better than the guy, or maybe the matchup's good, or for whatever reason we're having a big lead in lane. Now the other case is going to be either you're losing lane or just going even and you feel like you can't kill him. In that case, then your goal is go to lane, push it quickly, then roam, right? So that's usually how we're going to decide between which of those styles to play. And you're totally right that Lissandra can kind of do both. Lissandra's a bit more geared towards roaming compared to the average mid lane mage, but still can definitely do both if you get a lead early game. So that's just like kind of the main thing to mention there. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And then again here with the objectives, usually we want to push our wave right before the objective. So we see a wave coming. There's no reason you can't quickly go push this wave and then go and help your team on the objective afterwards, because we know that Abess is not here because she showed, you know, on the other objective they got it. And so what ends up happening is, since you gave up this mid lane, you're losing your entire turret to the Enchanted Ensemble. When if you'd pushed your lane and then came here, you wouldn't have lost your whole turret because they wouldn't have had a wave. So now, even though you ended up being here to help your team out so that maybe you would possibly get a kill, even though we didn't, you're losing out on way more gold even if you got the kill. Because a kill is worth 300 gold. First turret is going to be 350 bonus gold plus almost at like 600 something. I don't remember the exact number, but it's like roughly 1,000 total gold is what you're losing out on there. So it's never really worth it to give up an entire turret just to get a fight or to get an objective that's probably going to be gotten anyways, because we saw the enemy on the other objective, so we knew they couldn't be contesting us. So again, it's really just the same kind of fundamental concept of, before we do anything, including rotate the most objectives, we want to push first. Now, say that there was a fight, like you saw your team fighting already, right? Maybe you would go in that case if there was already a fight, but because there was nothing specific yet, you had some time, and Lissandra is kind of a cleanup champion anyway. So say that you're at a fight 2 seconds late, you have ways to get into the fight and clean people up, so you're not really like losing out on much. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know why I threw that so far out.
It happens. And here you should ult. Do you have ult? Yeah, you could have maybe ulted yourself, but I guess you end up living, so. Good. And to be clear, and I'm only asking this because you're new to the game and sometimes people have different understandings, you are aware that Lissandra Ultimate can stasis you as well, right?
Yes,
Okay,
I've learned that. So when I first started playing Lysandra, I kind of learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Because I would try to,
You
ult somebody,
yourself? Yeah.
and then I'll ult myself, and then they just
Yeah.
run away, and I'm like, oh, well, all right, there they go.
Yeah, no, I've done that on accident. That definitely happens. But it's good that you're aware of that. And so at this point in the game, yeah, like you are, you've lost your turret, and a lot of it is due to those kind of things that we spoke about. But once again, you want to start looking to help other people, but you want to push your lane first. So you see how the wave reached mid in the map, which we can just see from our map. Anytime that you see that your wave is on, like one side of the map, you know that their wave is going to be mirrored, right? Because that's just how it works. And so when you saw that your wave was about to reach mid lane, we should have gone towards the mid, gotten that wave, and then rotated and came here, because then you would have made the enemy lose a bunch of gold because it would have died under their turret. So you would be basically making them lose out on a bunch of gold, getting yourself additional gold, and then still being able to rotate just 3 to 5 seconds later, which still in most cases is going to be completely fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that is kind of the main thing I want you focusing on, is like this, like pushing before we make a lot of plays. And usually when it comes to improvement, I'm going to tell people, I'm going to give people like really specific things to focus on, rather than like try to improve on 20 different things at once, because that just is, it's like very difficult to do, and it leads to kind of people not actually improving on any one thing because they're just trying to juggle too many things at once. So the initial focus I want you to have is, I want you to make sure to understand within the first 3 levels, like I said, 3 to 4 levels, make your plan based on how the early lane goes. Do I want to play to carry and play more for my lane, or do I want to play to push and roam a lot? And then when it comes to the later parts of the game, I want to make sure that you're understanding before I roam, before I recall, before I, do really anything, I need to push my lane in 95% of cases, unless there's like a really important fight that I just like have to go to because I see everyone fighting. That's going to be sometimes the case as well, but most of the time we want to do that. So like here, for example, where you immediately go on the wave and then you're looking to push it before rotating, that's exactly what I like. Where then, now that the wave's already pushed, now you can do whatever you want. You could recall because you're low health. Again, you could rotate, you can do any of that. So at this one, I'd probably recall because you're relatively low health, but... The other important thing about recalling is understanding, like recalling before objectives. So typically, about 35 to 40 seconds before an objective is spawning, especially like any dragon or like a baron, you want to recall so that you can spend your gold, that you can, get your health back up, your mana, everything, and then be as strong as possible for the fight so that you're in a good position to set up for the fight. Instead, you haven't recalled before this dragon that's about to spawn, and so now you're not as strong as you could be for this fight, and you're basically just not going to be nearly as useful as you otherwise could be. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And yeah, when it comes to how you played this fight, I mean, it's mostly fine. But again, though, we can see how we're losing out. Like, we've already lost 2 mid lane turrets, and so another thing about losing our mid lane turrets is that gives the enemy pretty much complete control to rotate into our jungle because their wave pushes deeper into, our base, and then they just have vision of us through that wave. So that's another reason why I like this focus on turrets, and rather than focusing on kind of these objectives is important. Again, we still want to make sure we're focusing on the objectives just after we push our wave most of the time, which again, I know is something I've said very frequently. And then another thing to keep in mind as well, especially in kind of the middle parts of the game, like anywhere from, let's say, like 8 to like 15 minutes in the game, is deciding where to roam. And oftentimes we want to roam to where we can gain the most. So in this case, there's a top lane turret that's still alive, but there's no bottom lane turret that's alive. So when deciding on where to roam to, I'd usually rather that you roam to the top lane because that's where the turret's at. So again, I want you pushing your wave, as we've obviously spoke about a lot, but then I want you going towards this top lane most of the time because they're going to get a lot more out of that if the roam does work out, rather than going here with your team where then even if the roam does work out, we don't gain nearly as much from it. And it's, again, we have no specific reason to think that this roam's going to work out. There wasn't anyone that was necessarily low. Only 2 of our 4 teammates were there at the time. Again, it does work out, right? In hindsight, it works out well. But that's just something we kind of want to keep in mind, is we want to make the play typically where there's whatever type of objective, which includes turrets. And then once like the Baron's actually spawning, so we see now Baron spawning in 30 seconds, that's when we'd want to be on this side of the map. So like now that it's spawning sooner, that's when we'd start playing around that side of the map, basically. So when you don't have a specific objective to play for, oftentimes the turrets that are the easiest to take, those become the next kind of objective.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
So yeah, so far, yeah, the laning stuff that we spoke about, pushing the wave, understanding what to do in between objectives, and then setting up for objectives, those will be the main things. And again, we'll write those down at the end. Apart from that, I'm assuming the other thing that might be important to mention, especially for Lissandra, is kind of target priority. So like deciding on who to actually go on. Most of the times we're going to want to go onto a squishier champion. We're more focused around burst damage. So in this game, for example, feel that? No. But in this game, for example, targeting the Lulu is like a really good thing. Obviously, oftentimes targeting the Enchanter support or targeting the ADC, which is Ezreal in this case, usually going to be optimal. Because like Lulu, for example, if you don't kill Lulu or go on Lulu right away, she's going to buff and heal and shield her teammates. But she can't do all of the same buffs and heals and shields on herself as she can on her teammates. She can use a lot of them, but she can't use, for example, Veil, which I don't know if you even know what Veil is, do you?
That's the boot enchantment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where like blocks a hostile ability.
Exactly. Yeah, so she can't use that on herself, but she can use it on her teammates, which is why a lot of times, if they have an enchanter, we're targeting that enchanter. Depends on the situation, again, as I have said many times, right? Everything is situational, but this is just the general rules to follow. And then the more you play, the more you kind of figure out the nuance to everything, right? So I'm mostly giving you the general rules, so in most of the time, they have an enchanter as Lissandra, you're going to want to target them, or at least target a squishy champion. So here, for example, you can target Echo. Like I said, you're a hard counter to Echo. So targeting him when he goes in is not a bad idea at all. But targeting Malphite or Ambessa most of the time going to be rather difficult. Now again, if they're in front of you and there's no one else to target, you can hit them, but we're going to try to find, third abilities onto Ezreal or onto Lulu and like look for that type of thing. But at this point, the game's probably in a pretty rough spot. Not like a ton to do The only other thing is when they get Baron, or when you have Baron, make sure we're prioritizing getting the lanes pushed over fighting. So you guys are all grouping in mid here when your bottom lane and your top lane are both getting pushed in, and your teammates were covering mid, so you didn't really need to be there with them. You could have been more focused on clearing the bottom lane or the top lane waves so that they don't pressure your turret. And then the opposite would be true if you had the Baron, where you would want to make sure that all your side lanes are pushed out so you can pressure all of the turrets at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Also, random note is if you recall and then like you're back in base, you gain mana and health quicker than if you walk back there. So just like a random thing to keep in mind. But, and again, this is another time where we kind of could have prioritized just getting back to the waves that are on our turrets rather than initially just going in the fight. So you notice how like I think you're about to lose your mid lane inhib. Also, are you aware that if you lose your your like last turret in any lane, that like super minions spawn? Are we aware of that?
Yeah, it's like super minions, and then after like a couple minutes, you get like that inhibitor thing.
Yeah, it respawns, and then the super minions go away unless it gets killed again. That's true. And then the only thing is, those like if it's at a certain time, I think it might be 20 minutes into the game. I actually don't know 100%. But if it dies after 20 minutes, then the inhibitor never responds. Like it just permanently will be dead. And you can tell whether or not it's permanently dead by the little like hourglass thing. So since there's an hourglass thing, it means that it will respawn eventually. But if there's no hourglass there, it means that it will never respawn. So just something to keep in mind as well. I'm just mentioning these random little things since you are new to the game, so you like I don't know exactly what it is you do or don't know. But yeah, there's that. And then I forgot to look at your build. You're going Malignance first, which is a new item that I know is very good on Lissandra. What are your other typical items that you're going?
So, I believe, if memory serves, I go Malignance first into Awakened Soul Stealer, Crown, Death Cap,
Actually, just
and
pause
then
real quick.
my.
You can just pause real quick. And then
Yeah,
click the
you.
arrow in the middle. If you click the arrow in the middle twice, like the bottom middle, yeah. Then one more time, it'll show your items. So yeah, you're going Malignance, Soul Stealer, Crown. So instead of going Crown third, go Death Cap third, go Crown fourth, and then last item. You can go a couple different things. I'll write down, so remind me as well to talk about the build. Because there's some situational items. Do you know anything about situational items or not really?
A little bit. That's like, so for my full build, I go like Malignance, Soul Stealer, Crown, Decap, and then sometimes, so I'll run like that. I don't know what that book is called, that the anti-heal book,
Yeah, the green book, Morello Namicon, yeah.
or I'll go. Yeah, it's the one where it like gives you increased damage over time, and then eventually you start dealing like true damage.
Beyondries?
No. Was it Riftmaker or something like
Oh,
that?
Riftmaker, yeah. Yeah, Riftmaker. Yeah, you do true damage
I'll
after
sometime.
like a couple seconds of being in combat. Yeah, so that's not going to be a good item on Lissandra ever. But yeah, I'll write out the items. We can just talk about it at the end since it's probably an easier thing to talk about at the end. But yeah, we can go back into the replay. And the main thing, yeah, will be that you should go Death Cap third instead of fourth. But yeah.
All right.
The main reason for that, by the way, is one, because Death Cap is like just by far the best AP item, but it obviously is better later on in the game, which is why we don't go like first or second, but it's like just the most raw damage by far. And then your champion is a very safe champion who doesn't really need something like Crown, which is a more defensive item. You don't need it super early on, like in the middle of the game on third item, because it's going to give you a lot less carry potential, and you have stuff like your stasis and your third ability to get out and keep yourself alive, so it's a bit overkill. Where we want to, especially in like ranked games, be a bit greedy with our build so that we can carry. Because generally, we're going to prioritize kind of being able to carry ourselves rather than relying on others a bunch. And even if you are, you know, your teammates are doing well, having that extra damage still is going to usually allow them to do better anyways. So that's basically the reasoning for that. But yeah. Looks like you guys probably end up getting this. It looks like you just end off this Baron, basically, I'm assuming. Yep, the game ends in like a minute and a half. So this is a time where after we get Baron, most of the time we want to recall and spend our golds, and then rotate, because you get quicker recalls with Baron. So that's kind of an important thing to typically do. Not every time, but most of the time you're going to want to do that, and then you just go and push the wave after. I like that you go to the side lane rather than just going straight mid so that you're pushing out the lane. So this is kind of what I was talking about. You know, when you have Baron, it's exactly what you want to do. So that's perfect. And then, yeah, if you're setting up for a possible Elder Dragon, that's kind of why we would want to make sure that we'd recalled so that we're strong for this Elder Dragon fight. And are you aware of how Elder Dragon, Baron, all those things work, just to be clear as well?
Yeah, Elder executes below a certain health, and then
Yeah.
Baron increases all your stats, and it makes the minion stronger.
Yep. And I think, and well, not I think, I know. Elder also gives a burn. So like if you do damage to someone with Elder, it'll also burn them for like a second or two. So that's also the other thing that Elder does. But yeah, it's basically just damage. So basically Elder is the combat thing, like the combat game ending objective, and then Baron's the one that makes the minions so that you can push better. So that's pretty much what's important to keep in mind with them both.
I remember this game now because Graves literally closed the game out for
Oh,
us.
he's gonna backdoor here, yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny. And yeah,
because I think
it
we
makes
just
sense you had
stalled
in 7 seconds.
because we stalled him in mid game, like in the mid lane, and then he like
Yeah,
clutched it.
that's funny. Also, what was your win rate last season? Remember?
I really don't. I know. I think it was above 60%. I know that.
Gotcha. So yeah, we can just go into the next replay. Do you have any other questions about the game or like anything else specific?
Uh,
Or just questions
so
in
as far
general
as
about anything?
like I know you said the different like swap the items like with my runes because this is generally what I run.
These runes
Well,
are probably
what
not
I
the runes I
recently
would run,
started.
but yeah. What's up? Sorry.
Recently started this because like someone was like, you need to be more tanky, so I was like, we'll give it a shot. But
Yeah.
normally I'll do like electrocute, scorch, cheap shot, eyeball,
Collector,
and
yeah.
then for my fourth one, I would do like overgrowth or something.
Yeah. I'm honestly like both rune sets are fine. They are just different in what they do. So I would say the general rule I would say is the runes that you said for like the damage runes basically. Those would be ones that are really good if you have a lane matchup that you feel like you can win, that you want to kind of snowball early, because those are good early game damaging runes. And then say you're in a lane matchup you find hard, then these ones are going to help you get through that lane a lot easier. And then you're still going to have Gathering Storm, which will let you still do damage in the late game. So basically, in a matchup like Echo, for example, that you know you can kind of win and you're going to be fine in, you can go for the damage ones. And then say you're against something that counters you, like Ziggs counters you, Orianna counters you, Syndra, basically long range mages counter you. Those types of matchups, you'd probably want to go for these runes.
Okay. I could show you my stats for what I mean. The season just started, but
Sure.
some stats.
Go to the
Oh, I
far
can't.
left first. Yeah, standard modes, then ranked. Far
You
left,
said standard mode.
modes. Yeah, then ranked. And then if you click on the right side, the 3 little bars again, you can also make it the last season or the season. So, yeah, so then go on the 3 little bars on the far right. So that shows. So overall, like stats are good. Obviously, we're in a lower rank because the weird thing is like the way this game works is basically up until gold is like mostly bots, and you also can't actually lose rank until you get to plat. So like even though the lowest ranks are iron, like the real lowest rank that you can actually be stuck in is like plat. So it's like weird when like how the ranks work and everything. But yeah, I mean, I'm just curious because sometimes I'll see have people want coaching and then they'll like have really good stats and whatever, and they just don't play much. So that's sometimes the case. In this case, obviously, we're newer to the game and just trying to learn the game. But that's mostly all I wanted to see. So we can go into the next replay.
Down here somewhere. I hope it didn't delete. Was it this one where I would guess like a Twisted Fate?
Is there a reason you want to review this one specific? Oh, against
There
Twisted
was
Fate, you
just
said.
like there was some plays that I was trying to make, and like I did watch the replay, but I can't find it. I think it might have. I think that might have been too far back.
Yeah.
Nope, that's the Yasu. And I was just trying to do really weird. Like I was trying to be adventurous, and why is she texting me? Well, I think this is the Timo one.
Okay.
This one was a. Where's it at? There it is.
Do you feel like you typically have any like specific issues you have in games, or like anything that's, you know, in general, anything like that, or not really?
Not like a specific issue, just more like I know I can improve.
Yeah.
Because I know like I'm gonna pause it. Like I know in this game, like one, I know it doesn't show chat, but I remember this game because Renekton was like starting to rage because he
Yeah.
was blaming Diana for a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
Like there was at one point you'll see it. He was like really low and he had full stack. Like Darius had a full stack bleed on him, and then Renekton died and he blamed Diana. And I was like, I don't think Diana's ult would have saved you there, bro. I think you would have still died.
Yeah.
So
No,
like Renek and Diana were like going at it back and forth, and it was just this was like a really weird game because I was like trying to like, all right, guys, let's keep it together.
do you know how to mute chat?
I do.
Okay. Do you know how to like put it on party
I
chat so you don't see it every game, like instead of just muting them in an individual game? Do you know what that? Do you know what I mean by
I
that?
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes I just mute individuals
Yeah.
because like you'll have like that one person who like pings like 50 million times. Like, all right, bro, I'm gonna need you to calm down.
Yeah. I mean, I would just
Or
say in the long run, it's like you basically, I'm the highest rank in the game. I was like ranked 10 last season. And even
Mhm.
at that point, I get no value from reading people's messages. Even when I'm playing with good players, there's almost never a time where they type something and it's genuinely useful. But there are many times where they type something and either it distracts me just because I'm laughing at how stupid they are, which is still distracting me, or I'm actually getting tilted, you know, if I'm having, like, if I'm, say I'm on the lost streak and then they start typing dumb shit. So, like, it pretty much never provides value if the sole goal is to climb. Now, if the goal is to have fun and you like fucking with people, like, you know, go ahead, do whatever you want. But I just want to point that out, that it's definitely optimal to mute the chat, especially in Wild Rift, so.
yeah, like Pokemon Unite didn't have chat, so you didn't have to worry about.
Yeah.
You had pre. It was like those pre because
Also, click your champion,
that
by
game
the
was.
way, on the left side.
Oh,
Yeah,
my bad, my bad.
you're good.
Like
But yeah,
that game is made for kids, so it's not. Uh, like it's a
yeah.
lot of those pre-built messages, like "Good job, team," and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then it gets like Wild Rift, and it's like "Kill yourself." It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that is how it goes. Gotta love it. Yeah, in terms of like this lane so far, you're pretty fine with just going on the wave right away. Like I like how you're actually pushing the wave immediately rather than just letting them push it in this game. It's a little like, you know, having a bit better control. And then this is kind of a time where we needed to understand levels. So the way the levels work is after 3 minions, if you kill 3 minions, you'll be extremely close to level 2, and then after like a couple seconds, you'll get level 2 basically. And so in that case, you'd killed 3 minions, and he'd only killed 2, and you were about to hit level 2. So you should have walked at him and just, you could have literally killed him. Like you had enough damage to kill him because you had level 2 and he was level 1. And leveling up gives you better stats as well. It gives you more armor, HP, AP, AD, everything. And so you could have just killed him there straight up. Even now you could flash on him. Yeah, there we go. So we do it eventually. But yeah, if we were just aware of the level diffs when we're pushing the lane, then we would have been able to kill him a bit quicker. And that's the thing that we need to anticipate, where it's like, okay, I'm about to kill this 3rd minion. I know I'm going to get level 2 off it. Or maybe it's right in the start of the lane. Maybe you need to kill all 4 minions, but then you're like, okay, I'm going to get level 2. Now I'm going to just all-in him because I know I can kill him. So being aware of those all-in opportunities on the level diffs is kind of a main thing to focus on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, everything else is good though at this lane. And again, you were aware when you can kill him, which is good. Also, I mean, small thing, but could have been like quicker with igniting him, because again, if you were like aware, like I want to all in him right away, you could have ignited him as soon as you W'd or second ability. But you were a little slow with it. Again, that's more of a just like tiny thing, but still just to point out. Since I mostly just point out all those small things like in the actual replays, and like I said, we'll write out like the bigger things that matter more. And like here again, you can be very aggressive because you're up a level on him. So like notice how you just hit level 5. You should have been aware of the fact you're going to hit level 5 and all in him again because he's level 4. But instead, you're still trading like you guys are just like even, like you're of the same strength. So if we had been aware of our own strength at that point, we would have known that we could pretty much just go and kill him there because we are about to hit our ultimate. So that's just the thing I want you to pay attention to. And do you know how the circle works, like how to tell how close you are to your next level, or?
It's like the line. It's like that
Yeah,
really
yeah, the
thin
circle.
line.
Yeah. So yeah, like just saying that because yeah, we saw that it was really close and we could have been aware of that. And again, it's something where like the more you play, the more you're like, for example, now you can tell you're 1 minion away from getting level 6, right? So that type of thing, it matters especially the first 5 levels because like hitting level 1, 2, 3, and 5 because you get an actual ability from those. Obviously, other levels just give you stats. They're still valuable, but not as valuable. And then this is the point in the game where now you're in a position where you can't do much in terms of punishing him or laning. So now your goal is just push and roam, as we kind of said, where we shift our mindset. So it's like, you know, first couple levels, can we kill, can we do whatever? And then now at this point, you should kind of realize, like, probably not going to kill him a lot more. Makes more sense to me to probably want to push the lane and then roam and that type of thing. So just identifying that. And just because you decide to push and roam, one thing I do want to mention is it doesn't mean you actually have to commit to the roam. You just push the lane, then you look for a roam. If you see a good roam angle, you go for it. If you see nothing, then you can just go back when the wave is coming back. Which again, you can look at the wave based on the stuff I talked about, like looking at where your wave is relative to the middle of the map, and then you can tell that's where their wave will be. Or again, if he goes up here and randomly gives you a kill angle, obviously you take it, right? So that's the other thing is, of course, we're going to shift based on, you know, whatever the enemy decide to do. But I'm assuming we will see a lot of the similar kind of things to talk about. Usually the reason I do 2 replays is just to make sure, like, you know, the stakes are consistent, but most of the time we see a lot of the similar things, so those are going to be the main things I want you focusing on, is the same stuff we kind of spoke about before. And then trying to anticipate like what else might come up, because again, I want you initially working on the notes we'll write out, and then once those things kind of become better, I would say one important thing as well, just learning how all the champions work since you are newer to the game. Like obviously if you can actually tell, you know, what spell the enemy champion is going to use on you because you actually know how they work, then that's important. And so that's one reason why it might not be a bad idea, especially early season, to either go into PvP or ranked, whatever it is you want to do, and just try out new champions. Like generally I tell people stick to only a few champions, and I want you to stick to a few champions when it comes to actually trying to climb. But the first month of the season, you're never really going to reach like a peak rank, and you said your goal is not even a specific rank right now anyways. So trying out random champions, like I would basically say play regular ranks, and then anytime that you play against a champion and you're like, what the fuck did that, like what just happened, you know, you just have no idea what happened, just go play that champion for a game and read their abilities, and that will just help you slowly gain an understanding, or watch a video on whatever it is you want to do with your, you know, however you want to do it, but just some way where you can start to understand the champions better. And then here you could have dove the Teemo under his turret. He ended up just walking out and giving you guys a kill anyway, so shout out to him for that. But because you had a beefy champion with a wave under the turret and your jungler was there, could have just looked straight up for a dive on him, but again, still ends up working out fine. And then here you can stay on the turret, and yeah, perfect, we do stay. Oh, we don't, but yeah. A lot of times after you get a roam, especially if you have a big wave, you can kind of stay to try to get a turret, or not like a full turret, but to get plates from the turret, right? So sticking around after our roam to make sure we get as much as we can out of it is usually important, especially if we have a big wave. Unless maybe our turret's being pressured in mid and we want to make sure that we want to go back there, but yeah.
Enemy double kill. Ally slain.
At this point, you probably just give this up and just go mid. Yeah, not really. That's fine. And yeah, we should just kind of have already given this up. Like our teammates have died. Nobody's really nearby. We could have just, again, focused on the mid lane turret. So like a lot of times when this type of thing happens where maybe you want to initially go to a fight, but then your teammates die or something bad goes on, go back to your wave, push your wave, and then try to make a play elsewhere rather than trying to continue the fight. Obviously you didn't die, like you backed off, but had you been quicker about that, you could have pushed the mid wave really quickly and then rotated back towards bottom side and gotten that gank on the Darius and killed him. But instead now you're rotating when you haven't pushed your wave, so now you're losing out on a bunch in mid lane. You end up going back, so you don't lose as much, right? But we don't really want to be looking for that rotation before going towards or pushing our wave in mid again, as we kind of talked about, because then we just lose out on a lot more. Because even if, say, you got the kill's worth 300 gold, your wave you would lose 200 gold, because that's how much a wave is going to give you roughly. And then if you lost even one turret plate, the enemy would get more gold from that plate than you. And you lose out on XP from your wave, so it also is worse in that aspect. So.
Oh yeah, this is when the Renekton was trying to flame Diana.
To him.
Yeah. Because that earlier play, like when I went bot, he died.
Yeah.
And he tried to say that it was Diana's fault. But he had full stack. bleed. And I was like, no.
Yeah. Usually people are like that. Never their fault. It is easier to blame people, so that's but pretty funny. Yeah, I like the rotation as well. You pushed your wave before rotating. So like I think when it comes to a lot of the things in this game, you're doing pretty much what you should be doing. Going back mid's fine here. I really wouldn't have a problem if you stay bot or go mid. Like both are completely fine because if you stay bot, you potentially get the turret. If you go mid, then you get control over that wave and then can rotate again. So sometimes like there's multiple plays that are perfectly fine, and so you end up staying here. I think you guys could probably kill him. Maybe you end up dying actually. Oh, you do die. A little unfortunate. I really don't have a problem with the decision to be here though. Ended up dying, you know what happens sometimes, and we still get the kills and the turret off of it. So yeah, pretty much all fine. I guess the turret's at 34, kind of unlucky, but. And then yeah, when you respawn, just click on your champion again, because. Are there any other things about the game in general that like have confused you or that you haven't understood, or have you kind of like figured it out from like YouTube videos or just playing and stuff like that?
The flash combos, I don't like people who can do it. I've tried it and I've failed almost every single time.
Flash combos with who?
Like Blitzcrank, Thresh, like so many of the champions.
I don't think Blitzcrank can do it. I'm pretty sure Blitzcrank cannot Q flash or first ability flash, but Thresh can, yeah. I would say the best thing for those combos is just to go into the practice tool. Do you know how to go into practice tool?
Yeah.
Yeah, so go into practice tool if you are like specifically learning a champion. Lissandra doesn't really have any flash combos, so yeah, like if you start manning a champion that does, just practice for 20 minutes, 50, whatever, however many minutes until you get it down. That's the only way that you're really going to get it down, or just trying and failing in game. But yeah, with those types of things, you pretty much just have to mess it up in game a bunch, and eventually you get used to it. I've played like 1,000 games of Thresh, so that's something now that's like second nature. But yeah, when the first like 100 games I was learning Thresh, the amount of flash hooks I missed, you know, was quite a lot. And the only way to get better is just through practice. And then again, you did the same mistake as we've talked about many times, where you went to a top lane rotation instead of pushing your mid wave and then going. So then you lost out on a bunch in mid lanes. Luckily, the enemy didn't punish us, but you should have lost your mid lane turret for that decision. So just another thing to keep in mind. And then, oh, you're just getting the blue buff. That was pretty random. You could have just gotten the wave, then gotten the blue buff. So I think, yeah, just a little bit more prioritization of the waves in like a lot of these cases. For example, here is a really good time to prioritize it because Dragon is spawning in 20 seconds, and so we want to then probably reset if we have gold to spend. I don't know if you have gold to spend right now, but if you do, then you would reset, then go. If you don't have gold to spend, you just would, you know, push the next wave that's coming right now, because you can kind of see how there's another wave that's about to come. You push that wave and then you go. So that's what's going to happen a lot of times. There's going to be a dragon spawning in 15-20 seconds. You're going to push that initial wave, then you're going to wait for the next wave and then rotate. Whereas you're rotating a wave early again, where notice how this does, like, your champion does not do much damage to dragons at all. Your team could totally do this without you, and again, in a higher rank, your mid turret would be dead right now. Because they're not aware of it, it's not as big of a deal, but if they were aware of it right away, it'd be a bigger issue. So that's just like again, a common mistake that we see. But because we're in low ranks, luckily Seraphine kind of lets us kill her, so shout out to her. Oh, maybe your third ability, probably. Oh no, yeah, unlucky. And yeah, now it's just kind of messy. I mean, oh, there's a trap there. That's that's not. That kind of sucks. Oh well. But yeah, that's just the main thing again. Like mid lane is I mean, Wild Rift in general is a rather straightforward game. It's pretty much like everything revolves around waves, so that's just where a lot of the decision making comes in. Is like, we push a wave, then okay, what's the most important thing to do? It's, you know, again, it's recall, ward, go to a turret if there's no objective, go to objective if there is an objective, maybe help our team if we see a random fight. Obviously only if we're actually in a good spot to fight. That type of thing. So yeah, that, and then like I said, for you, champion understanding is important since you are newer to the game, which just comes with time, right? Like, I don't even, like, now that I've played so much, I like know all the champions work, but it took like a long time to actually understand, because there's like 100-something champions at this point in the game. So that's why it's like weird when you go to a new game. Like, I tried playing Pokemon Unite for a little bit, and learning all the champions was just frustrating because I like had to learn an entire new, you know, champion roster or whatever. But I got bored pretty quickly, to be honest.
It is very simple once you, because I got to master rank in Pokemon Unite.
Yeah.
And then I kind of stopped playing it because it was like the same builds, the same team comps. It was just, I was like, all right, we gotta try something else.
Yeah, Wild Rift's definitely a lot more complicated, like with all of the champions, more abilities, more passives, more pretty much everything, and the games are longer as more that goes on. So yeah, it's definitely a little more interesting, for sure. But here again, I would rather you push out a side lane. So a lot of times you're going to see in the middle of the game when there's no objectives up in Wild Rift, especially in low ranks, everyone's just going to go mid lane and decide whoever wins the fight wins the game. What you want to do, similar to how I tell you to push mid and then go rotate, you can do the opposite, where you go aside, then you can rotate towards mid, because then you get your lanes pushing, right? So when you come here and you go mid with the rest of your team, we're basically useless, as we can kind of see. Instead, you'd pushed out that bottom lane wave first. Now the enemy would be forced to respawn, or else they'd lose that low turret, and then you still would have been able to come towards mid in time to protect your own turret. So that's just a common thing, like, especially Lissandra is actually a good side laning champion. So obviously in the early to mid game, you want to be mid, but when it comes to the middle to like late parts of the game, we can start to, anytime that our teammates go mid, we can just go side, because it's a very common thing where the ADC and support will start to go mid lane. And so when they do that and you notice that, the typical thing you'll want to do is go to the side lane of the same side of wherever the objective is going to spawn next. So if Dragon's the next thing to spawn, you go to the side lane of the Dragon. If it's Baron, side lane of Baron. You can go opposite side if you need, like if someone's covering that, but typically that's how we do it. And then after you push that out, like I said, the same rules apply with the rotating, or if you can get a turret, obviously you can take a turret, you know, it just depends. But also, when do you typically build your enchants, by the way?
Like, you talking about the final part of the boots?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I really struggle on them. Sometimes I don't even build it.
Okay.
Shut down.
Like I kind of,
Yep.
Turret destroyed.
I was gonna say, like, it's really kind of just situational. Like if we're getting like absolutely cooked and I need it, I'll buy it. But if it's like, then I just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, general rule of thumb that I go by is after my third item finished, I'll do it, because usually that's a death cap, and after finishing a death cap, we're pretty good on damage, and so now having some type of defensive thing is important, and usually you're going to build stasis for the most part. Sometimes you'll build Quicksilver enchant, which basically stops you from getting CC'd if you click it, so either of those are really good defensive, right? Obviously, you know how stasis works, your champion literally has a stasis, but yeah, that's typically after third item we're gonna do it, and then typically we're gonna do it, we're gonna be more like inclined to build it if we're already ahead, because building defensive makes more sense when we're ahead, and building more offensively makes more sense when we're behind. The reason is because if we're behind, we're not gonna have as much damage relative to the enemy, and so we need to make sure that all of our items are focused on having the ability to actually kill the enemy if they make a mistake. Whereas stasis or other defensive things are pretty much to protect ourselves from throwing the game when we're already ahead, right? Like, we're already strong, so we just need to make sure that we don't randomly throw or get caught or give up a shutdown, and so that's the time where we want to have those more, but also just generally after third item is like the most common time to do it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Enemy turret destroyed.
I think even with this one, I think I would. Yeah, with the same.
Same build, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, this build's not bad or anything. It just, yeah, the death cap third will be slightly better, but, or well, quite a bit better, but yeah, it's still like fine. And Crown's very forgiving, which is kind of nice. And that's also the reason that like Crown's a more common item to build when ahead, because it is pretty defensive, right? But it's also just a really strong item to build later in the games in general. Makes it really easy to not throw. And then yeah, this is kind of the time where I'm saying like you'd be side laning same side of Baron, so it's like it's good that you're spending time on this side of the map. You could go push out that bottom lane wave quick and then rotate after. I don't mind you recalling because you see the people on your turret, so like again, that's fine, right? But it's just like as a general thing as well. I think you should probably just use your stun instead of your stasis on you. Yeah. Because then you definitely could have killed the Teemo there, but yeah. Yeah, I could have had a little better awareness that A lot of times what's important to keep in mind is like after you cover a side lane wave is that there's going to be one more wave that'll be like come, because usually say that the top lane wave got stuck for a while in like a certain spot, that means that it has time for the next wave to build up. And so then after you push one wave, you can expect another wave is going to come within like 10-15 seconds, usually near there. And so you could have expected Teemo to be on that turret, or at least for that wave to be on that turret, for that reason. And then because we hadn't also controlled the waves and pushed them out, we're kind of in a little bit of a rough spot for the Elder, but it's mostly fine. And so this is one of the times where it's like, even though there's waves that are kind of pushing in mid, it's fine to rotate right away because there's a big objective and there's an obvious fight going on. So this is sort of the situation I was talking about before, where it's like sometimes you do just instantly need to rotate. So just pointing that out. But damn, you lived. That's funny.
Ally slain.
That Volibear really, Jesus Christ, I can't believe he lived that.
Oh yeah,
That's insane.
yeah,
Enemy triple kill.
yeah. That Volibear was cracked.
Yeah, at this point you should just go mid, by the way, as well, instead of going here, because you know he's going to recall. You know they're not actually like going to do the objective right away. So it would have been better to push your mid lane first, because now the enemy would have to actually like worry about their turret getting pressured, and then again you'd get vision of them, and then you'd be able to rotate in. So that's just something that we could have been a bit more aware of, because our teammates aren't here. Like we're not really going to do anything anyways. If they walk and they decide to hit Elder, they're going to just be hitting it. Like it's nothing you can do. Luckily they're dumb and they're on the wrong side of the map, so that's good for us. But like again, just prioritizing this mid lane control rather than rotating here, and then we could have just, you know, rotated right after pushing mid. Would have been more effective. Whereas again, we're just kind of wasting time here. And so what this also does is if the enemy do win the fight, they're going to win the game because they can push the wave because the wave's not pushed. But say that you push the wave, even if the enemy win a fight, they have to push multiple waves, less likely to actually like end the game or anything like that. So. And then target priority as well. We didn't really want to target Volibear, we wanted to target backline. So if you'd gone on that Seraphine and that Kai'Sa, they would have pretty much been one shot. But your damage on Volibear, like, it did nothing. He would have died regardless because, again, he's really tanky. So getting a bit of extra damage most of the time not going to be as important. So it's also, again, the target priority thing we kind of mentioned before. I assume at this point you guys probably get this, and then you probably get Baron and End, though.
I don't remember if we get Baron. I'm gonna be real.
Yeah, that's something that's also important generally. Obviously, it's not always your choice because you're not the jungler, but the typical sequence we follow to end games is we get Elder, we use the Elder to get Baron, and then we end the game. Most of the time, that's going to be a lot safer than just ending with Elder because the enemy usually can still wave clear through that. But it depends on the specific game, as always. Now it looks like you get Baron. Unless the enemy stop it, I guess. Yeah, and so you just push mid and end, basically. Your ult cooldown is so low, actually. What the hell? That was insane. Like 2 ults within like 20 seconds. I guess because Soul Stealer.
Yeah.
Enemy slain.
Malignance gives
Malignance
20,
too, yeah. I forgot about Malignance because
then-
it's like a new item.
and then Soul Stealer. Whenever you kill someone, you get haste.
Yeah, yeah.
You get like a portion of their haste
Yeah.
on your ult.
Yeah, it's pretty nutty. I didn't even think about the Malignance because I keep forgetting the items. Like it came out like a day or two ago. So, I'm gonna share my screen and write out notes, and I'll send you the notes obviously after. But we'll write them out together so that if I'm typing something and it like doesn't make sense to you, or you want me to change the wording, just let me know. But just let me know when you do see my screen.
Back out of this.
Yep, take your time.
All right, I see it.
Okay, so first thing is do not ward level 1, and again, stop me anytime you have questions or anything, but just basically don't ward level 1, wait until pushing wave the word, and ideally word a jungle camp if I type prio. Do you know what I mean by prio or not?
What priority?
Yeah, like lane prio. Basically, I'll just say if we have the lane pushed. Basically just means that we have control over the lane. And if the enemy have control of the wave, or lane, just ward a bush, like you did, you know, at the start of the game. Then second thing is be aware of level up timers. So level 2 after 3 or 4 minions, depending on how much time has passed. Because again, like if a lot of time has passed, then only 3 minions is necessary. If not much time has passed, then 4 minions is necessary. And then trade hard when you have level advantage. Recall typically after 4th wave when we have enough gold for mana boots. Then come back to lane, push, then usually roam. Again, like we kind of spoke about, you're going to decide on whether or not to kind of play for lane or play for roaming, depending on how the lane goes. So typically after the first 3 to 4 waves, determine if you want to play for lane dominance or for roaming. And again, as always changes based on the game. I'm not saying you're just going to be like, oh, I'm going to roam, and then no matter what you roam, even if you see a free kill, obviously, right? But that's straightforward. That's most of like the lane phase things. Then the other thing is push wave before roaming, recalling, warding, etc. Basically everything revolves around waves. Then after roaming, make sure to take the wave and potentially hit turret. Basically just take as much as you can out of a roam. Again, if you need to go back to your lane right away, obviously you're going to go back, right? But just like if someone's pressuring your turret, but that's what we want to try to do. And then in mid game, focus on pushing a wave about 30 seconds for objective, then recall if needed, then push one more wave, then rotate to the objective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Trying to think about what else we spoke about specifically. Do you remember anything just as I'm thinking like that we spoke about or that I should write down? I know the build is one more thing to mention, but apart from that.
It was the build, and then you talked about target priority, like
Yeah,
who to go
target.
after.
So typically target squishies and enchanters most of the time rather than tanks. And then yeah, last thing probably should just be build. So build typically, I do not know how to spell malignants, but I think you know what I mean by that, however you spell it. Then a soul stealer, then death cap, then situational, typically crown, then situational, typically infinity orb. So then I'm just going to write other situational items. So the last two where I wrote, I'll just write in the next. The last two where I wrote situational means that you could do these other items that I'm about to write if it's the correct situation, right? So situational items, Morello, Nomicon, I don't know how to spell it, but you know what I mean, the green book, and I'm just going to write what it's for. So this one's for anti-healed. Then we have Oceanide, again, don't know how to spell it, but you'll be able to figure it out. Anti-shield, so this item is just the anti-shield item whenever they have a bunch of shielding. And again, the more that you understand how champions work, the more that you're going to figure out when you need the anti-shield or anti-heal. And then honestly for Lissandra, those are really going to be the only situational items. Like I said, otherwise you're just going to go for Crown and Infinity Orb. And for most of the AP champions, the Trident and Morellos are going to be the main situational items. There's also sometimes anti-tank items, like you said, Riftmaker, because it gives true damage. Then Liandry's because it gives percentage health damage. But both of those items are not very good on Lissandra specifically, because she's a burst damage champion, and they're both about damage. One is, you know, the longer in your combat you're doing true damage, and then Liandry's does damage over time. So both of those don't really work with Lissandra's whole kit. And then last thing is buy enchant buy enchant after 3 items most of the time. And then I guess I can also write here. I mean, that's pretty, but mana boots, right? Before you actually do malignance. Any other questions? Anything else at all that we talked about?
I think that's everything, really.
Okay. Then yeah, I'll write these main things down. Again, remember to kind of focus on 1 or 2 things at a time rather than trying to improve on all 11. And once you feel like you've worked on these things, you can either just watch your replays, or I have a lot of YouTube videos on different types of things, and you can like basically find your own additional things to improve on after you work on these, just based on whatever you kind of find. But that's typically how I'd recommend approaching it. So I'll send you these notes, and if you don't have any other questions, then I'll see you later.
Yeah, I don't got anything for right now.
See you later then. Good luck.